Who knows? Oh, wait a minute. Okay, I fixed it. Hey, there we go. We can always edit this one out. All right. Thank you. Now you don't get to hear two of me. You only get to hear one of me because I want you also to hear my guest, which whom I will bring in just a moment. So here we go. I'm going to do the usual social media plug here. Like us over on Facebook and on YouTube. And we've got a couple more shows left in this year. So tonight's show, and we've got a couple more before we close out the year. Great. So if you are watching, say hello. So Inti has said hello. Hello. If you're watching on either of the Facebook channels or over on YouTube, I will be checking the comments. I will look over here to check comments. So please say hello. Always ask questions if you have questions. And we love to hear from you. So anyway, I'm going to stop blabbing right now and bring in my guest tonight, who is Jerod Tate. And let's see, we'll switch over to the interview view. And there he is. There's Jerod. Jerod, how are you, man?
Well, how's it going, Miles? Hey, once my parents are on, I just got a little text from them. So, hi,
great.
Parents.
Great.
Thanks for watching, Mom and Dad.
We oh, hey, hello, Heather says hello. Heather Emmett says hello. So now your parents probably heard two of me for a while, so now they can hear one of me, which is good. So hello,
I have
Jared's
to
mom.
give a special thing about that is that they've followed me to a lot of my gigs around the country, and it's just really fun when they're able to join at least for a little bit. So it's just an old, really comfy feeling when they're present, and I'm doing
awesome.
My gigs. It makes me feel great. So it's just awesome.
Awesome, great.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for coming on the show tonight, and thanks for spending some time. I know that you're busy. You've got a lot of stuff going on, but it's just great to be able to spend a little time and talk music and share some of your music. And one of the things I think we'll start off with is, and I usually start at this spot, and this also gives you a chance to sort of speak more broadly rather than just a textbook biography, right? Is something of if you could tell the folks who might not know where you're from and so where you're born and where you grew up. And I also like to ask, like, what were some of your first connections to music that you can remember that drew you?
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I'll go ahead and introduce myself in my language first. So, Chukma, Chinchukma Tahatak, Sohol Chifo, Jerod Impichachaha Tate, Chikachasaya, Ashlaka Sayopa, Chukmashki, Yakoke. Hello, everyone. My name is Jerod Impichachaha Tate. I'm a citizen of the Chickasaw Nation here in Oklahoma. I live in Oklahoma City, and I'm a professional classical composer. And I feel very blessed with my life in the life of theater and music. And so both my parents actually have been involved in the theater their entire lives. And but I was born here in Oklahoma. My father is Chickasaw Indian, and he's from Ardmore, Oklahoma, is where he was born and raised. And Dad is by profession a tribal judge, special district judge, and lawyer. He graduated OU Law. Also went to Phillips University in Enid, for anybody in Oklahoma that might be listening that knows where that university was. But Dad is also a very fine classically trained pianist and baritone. Wow. And so I got a lot of good stuff from Dad. And so I grew up and very, very steeped in Indian politics and social structures and everything. I was very steeped in that scene in the 70s here in Indian country in Oklahoma, while Dad sang and played great piano repertoire. And this is a great story. Dad could he might correct me a little later about this, but I know Dad played the accordion as well. And so when he was younger, and as a younger adult, he actually gigged accordion and singing. And so you have this Chickasaw guy singing Italian arias on the accordion and stuff. It's just
Right.
it's so indicative of America and Indian country. It's just a really really cool thing.
Uh-huh.
So that's my dad's influence on
Story.
me.
Yeah,
So
right.
he played piano. You know, honestly, I wasn't really that interested until I was about 8, and I said, you know, would you start showing me some things? So we did, and of course we started with chopsticks, and I was hooked. And so I started piano lessons
Yeah.
when I was about 8 and a half, and within 3 or 4 months, I announced to my parents that I was to be a classical pianist, that I was going to be a concert.
You made the
Yeah,
proclamation, right?
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I literally said I'm going to be, and that was it. And so I was in. My mother, Patricia, is originally from Lincoln, Nebraska,
Uh-huh.
and she's Manx Irish, and so I am Chickasaw and Irish. And so, but mom was a professional choreographer and dancer,
Mm.
and so between my
Mm.
parents, I grew up in an enormous amount of theater. So I'm talking musical theater, lots of classic musical theater,
Yeah. Yeah.
opera, ballet,
Yeah.
modern dance, modern theater, just all that. I was very theatrically raised, and
Mm-hmm.
so I have a very high sensibility into theater, but also it really melds with when you're tapping into legends from your own culture.
Yeah.
Theater is just
It.
it's
Yeah.
a great combination. And so
Yeah.
anyway, but also honestly, I mean, I didn't start composing until I was 23, but growing up in all of these amazing ballet scores was the
Mm-hmm.
best orchestration lessons I could ever have. Was being saturated by Petrushka
Yeah.
when I was a kid.
Right. Right.
One of my favorite piano pieces was the Prokofiev Second Piano Concerto, which is
Which is
a
beautiful.
it's an
Oh,
amazing
that opening melody is just it's incredible.
it
You know.
that piece has everything in it. It's just, you know, and everything
Yeah.
Prokofiev in
Yeah.
it. And we, you know, we can talk about that later about influences, but Prokofiev was a very big influence in my life, and
Mm-hmm.
ended up playing his seventh piano sonata in my senior piano recital, which is something we're really proud of. But I just loved his music, and he just did everything under the sun. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's kind of like a basic background of where I'm from. But now I live in Oklahoma City now,
Uh-huh.
and I'm here permanently. This is where I will live the rest of my life. I wanted to be close to my tribe and my
Yeah.
family, and my son is being raised here in Oklahoma, close
Mm-hmm.
to in Indian country here, and it's really important to me.
Mm-hmm.
But my son, Hiloha, his name is Hiloha, and that's our Chickasaw word for thunder.
Mm-hmm.
And but he is now 7. He's been in ballet for 2 years. He studies horn. He's been taking horn
Oh,
lessons
wow.
for a year and a half.
Cool.
He's also a very accomplished visual artist, and
Oh,
so I'm
neat.
really, really proud of him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I also teach him the language, and
Yeah.
he stomp dances as well. And so, you know, just doing the whole thing with him. So
Nice. Nice. What drew him to the horn?
it's okay. I love this. Okay, so he was 5.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm a pianist, and so, you know, I'm like, here I was, you know, kind of, I don't want to be, you know, like Mozart's dad, you know, be
Right. Right.
really.
Exactly. Right.
So I'm very conscientious of that. Yes. And you know, and the thing is, I mean, honestly, my dad just played, and I just loved it.
Right.
And
Right.
he never like said, here, you're going.
You got to do
And I
this.
just gravitated, and I asked, and it was a very natural thing. So I've been very conscientious about that. And Hiloha has been like, you know, and I'm like, I get it. I'm your dad. I'm playing the piano. You know, that's a
Mm-hmm.
normal thing for kids to be like, sure,
Mm-hmm.
that's my parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but he has been drawing since he was 2, and that's been a very, very strong thing in his life. And great. I think that's wonderful. So, and of course, he's got a dad in the arts, and his
Yeah.
mother is also a very, very good drawer. And so,
Uh-huh.
so he's
So it kind of
very much got that from his mom.
right.
And so I'm thrilled just to see that. But finally, one day, I was actually pitching a musical piece to
Mm-hmm.
somebody on Zoom, and this is before pandemic, and he was in the house, and so he would want to be a part of it. He's like, "But Dad, I want to do this," and I said, "Well, okay." He said, "I really want to play an instrument," and I said, "Well." You're talking to the right guy. And I said, would you like to play piano? Would you like me to start you on piano? He goes, nah. I said, well, son, do you know what you want to play? He said, yeah, I want to play horn.
Wow. He just knew, but he, that's a very specific answer.
That is my son. And I just stopped because I'm thinking he does mean French horn.
Right. Not
Does
just
he know
generic
that French
horn.
horn doesn't exist? It is a horn. I mean, I'm just thinking all this nerdy stuff, like,
Exactly
and also,
right.
where's what? Well, I mean, it's all I talk about is orchestration. He's just hearing.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't go up to him and say, son, I'm going to talk to you about the different instruments of the orchestra. He just hears me, you know, in casual conversation all the time. But anyway, so I said, horn. Yeah. And I said, son, horn? Yes, dad, horn. And he's like, what's your problem? And so I pulled up a picture on my phone. I was like, you mean this? He goes,
This
Dad,
thing?
yes, that's a horn. I'm like, I know.
like he's like I know what a horn is. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
far be it for me to, you know.
Right.
So anyway, so he was just on it, and so I bought those little mini. They're called pocket horns.
Right. They're kind of like smaller.
Because he's
Yeah,
tiny,
yeah.
you know,
Right.
my son's, you know, this big, and the horn is, and so I, you know, but we tried that, but it's in B flat,
Mhm.
and I got a hold of the horn teacher here at Oklahoma City University. She's the principal of the Oklahoma City Philharmonic. And I just said, hey, you know, and she saw it. She's like, nah, we got to get him on a real horn. So I found a company in Dallas that makes 3/4 size F
Oh, wow.
horns.
Oh,
You
wow.
got a single F.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and I just talked to the faculty, and one of the students started taking him in. And so now that student is now going to UT Austin and for his master's in horn. Now he's got another student who's an education major here. And I mean, it's just, he has weekly lessons. He loves them. Just
Wow.
loves it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And they're, you know, honestly, they're working a lot, just a lot of long tones,
Yeah,
just producing
right,
sound.
right.
And she does, you know, she'll work on the piano a little bit. They come into my studio, and he's got everything in here. They do percussion rhythms, and so it's kind of like a holistic thing that she does.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Perfect for a kid his age.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, please be a horn player. It would be such, you know, it's like, if you're a good horn player, man, you got a great career.
It really, I mean, it's one of, well, you and I both know this. And what I love is just I love hearing about his just lack of fear in approaching the instrument, right?
Yeah.
Because if you know too much about what that instrument is, you're going to say, I'm not going to touch that thing, right? Because it's really hard to play that thing, right?
The
So-
partials are brutal
Yeah,
on that.
yeah. It's, you know, that little tiny mouthpiece, and, you know, I mean, I was a trumpet player, and, you know, that's, you know, so, you know, I'm thinking to myself, you know, that's not like the first instrument that usually one would pick, you know, we're not, and so, but the great thing is that when you don't know it's hard,
Yeah.
you just do it. It's like,
Exactly.
oh, I'm supposed to do that. Okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what I
You
learned.
know, I'll tell you that's a real, you've really nailed the approach I take when I teach composition to kids.
Yeah.
I'm like, right, you're writing music, and that's I do not give any precursors or any type of obstructive language. It's like, yeah, you're about to write a string quartet, and there's,
Yep.
of course you can.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, you know, dump this whole listen to the six Bartok string quartets and
Before you're ready. Like, in other words, like, you've got to know.
just write, just be the composer who writes string quartets, and
Right.
and then you'll learn about the other composers in history. And go, oh, yeah.
Absolutely, right, because
No, this is my colleagues, you know.
right. Absolutely.
I mean, why not? I mean, look, when Mozart wrote his first opera, nobody came up to him and said, "Have you ever written an opera before? Have you ever written a piano?" Well,
are you sure?
maybe we
Have
should
you-
hold
have you-
out
you should-
and make you
Yeah.
all nervous. Now he was like, "No,
Yeah,
I write
yeah.
everything."
You really should
Because
start with Monteverdi and then work your way up.
No, it's just like
Right.
he was writing modern opera then.
Yeah,
Right then,
absolutely.
and wasn't even thinking about it.
Right. It was just happening.
was it.
Right.
And that's why I believe it should be in everything that anybody chooses to do.
Yeah.
Is it you just simply do it because you're a human being,
Right.
and human beings are born beautiful and brilliant.
Mhm.
Out the gate, we're brilliant.
Mhm.
That simple. So why would you need any type of, well, let's go the hard, you know,
Let's
no,
consider
get-
this for a while. Yeah.
go,
yeah.
just go, you know, and that's the best way to do it. As far as
Well, you and I think alike in this regard, especially when we think about like teaching, and and you know, when we are you know, have the pleasure to work with young people who are interested, obviously, in doing something with music or whatnot, and I've had colleagues tell me like, what, like look at me with funny eyes, because when I first started teaching, and it's a college level, so you know, these kids from Indiana who didn't know Bartok from Schmartok, right? They come in, but they're like, hey,
I'm a
this
fan
is
of
cool.
Schmartok, so be
Like,
careful with it.
yeah, right. but I'll just play them stuff, and they'll say, oh wow, that's really cool. And like there's no fear or any like preloaded suppositions coming in. It's just sort of that sort of beautiful naivete that comes in of like knowing, like you don't know, but that's actually a good place. That's a great place to be, as to absorb. And so like I took this group of students from IU East, the smallest campus in the IU system, up to Chicago to like go to CSO concerts, I just wanted to expose them to music, not really, and happened to be like Pierre Boulez's 85th birthday concert. And they said, well, can we meet him? I said, oh, okay, sure. Like they didn't really, they didn't have an idea of the gravitas of like who Pierre Boulez would be if we, sort of presented it in the conservatory way.
Right.
And suddenly they're just walking right up to him and saying, oh, that was really cool. And,
yes.
And the same thing was like Steve Reich too. Like one of my students started talking about hats. Mm-hmm. Like they spent an hour. And you know what? Steve Reich was so gracious, but he was also, I think, so happy that somebody was talking to him about something normal.
Yeah.
Like hats. Like, where do you get your hats? And what kind of hat? Because he had a hat too. It was like, and so like, there's some beautiful thing about just what you do, like in terms of just this is what it is. Just do it. Just make it happen. Right. Worry about whether it's hard later. Like you look back and say, wow, like, look what I did. Right. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so your son embodies this.
He's pretty fearless.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Just looking at the chat, see if we get any other people saying stuff. Jonathan Newmark. Hi, Jonathan. Hello from Virginia. All right. So here you are wanting to be a classical pianist.
Yeah.
And without sort of going into the weeds of sort of like all the little nitty gritty details along your journey, because you mentioned, and I knew this about you, that you didn't come to composing until a little later. So you were focusing on being a performer, right, as a classical pianist. What kinds of things were in your ear as, say, a teenager in terms of like your sort of musical library? Like what was falling into your ears and what was resonating with you as a performer, but also like what then got you to say, I want to write something?
Well, okay, so what the three main things that were in my ear as a kid is, there's American Indian traditional music, so stomp dancing and powwow music, I knew. And of course classical music I knew, and then also pop. Of the 70s and 80s was a big deal. So Motown for me was a big pop influence. And my mother's brother, Jerry, was a studio drummer in Chicago.
Oh, yeah, cool.
He had moved to Chicago in the 70s during the 70s commercial boom.
Yeah.
Where it was, and I was able to attend sessions like that.
Nice.
And so, anyway, so I would say that I had and also because my mom studied so many different styles of dance, it brought in all kinds of different music from around the world.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, I count my lucky stars about what I was exposed to between my parents and the environments that I had on both sides of my family.
Yeah.
Really quite remarkable. So I'm
Yeah.
very, very fortunate about that. So, but practice, you got to practice when you're playing the piano, you got to practice. So I was really focused on that. And, I really stopped listening to pop in my senior year in high school because I was just like, I don't have a lot of time, honestly. And I made it to Northwestern University, which I was very, very great. I'll tell you, man, I don't know what happened, but I got a full ride to Indiana, to Northwestern, New England Conservatory, and Oberlin.
Wow.
And I don't know. I honestly don't know how that happened. I guess I don't know.
So I just did, man. Yeah. You obviously look, obviously you had the goods, right? Those are, for those of you who don't know at home, those are like, he just rattled off like what would normally be in the top 10 music schools in the country.
And of course they cycle through, the different schools, but no, I was very focused. I was very serious about it. But my sophomore year in high school is when I realized I've got to really, really do this right now. And so that's when I started practicing 3 hours a day as a sophomore. And then I made myself, I don't know what it was. It's something that was like, okay, as soon as I get out of school, and I was also a band geek, so I went to band rehearsal in the
Uh-huh.
morning. I was a total trumpet jock. I mean, I was
Right.
total ego trumpet guy. I was like first
Well,
chair
all
all
trumpet
the
players are
time.
like that, man.
I had high E flats,
Yeah,
no
right.
problem. I
Right.
mean, I was just like the guy. That was me.
Right, right.
So my ego was
Maynard
like right.
Ferguson ain't got nothing on me.
Nah, couldn't touch
Right.
me. So that was, that was just, but I just had a drive for it. I just loved it, and I just knew that I wanted to be so. But also because of my parents and what I was exposed, I knew it took a lot of work. And so by the time I was a sophomore, I had this goal of being a straight A student and getting into a college and majoring in music. And so I was just like really focused.
Hmm.
So I would get off of school, go to band rehearsal in the morning, go to, and I was in 3 music classes a day, so saturated with music all the
Right,
time
right,
because I wanted to be. That was all
right,
my electives and stuff.
right.
And then I just would practice, 3 hours a day. And a lot of times I go to the university and practice there because it's focused. Because
Hmm.
practicing at home can be very distracting.
Sure.
And then I would go home and do homework for an hour and a half,
Hmm.
and I would go see friends a little later that night if I needed to, or what. I mean, I had a social life. I was fine,
Right.
and so I felt, honestly, I felt really balanced in just how I was doing that. And so, so then I got to college, and it just, you know, went on from there. So, but yeah, I just had I really just felt it. I just knew it's what I
Mm.
wanted to do. In terms of, you're talking about how this kind of coalesced. So there's just here's all this stuff about me. Here I am. I'm Chickasaw. I'm a classical pianist. Sure. I mean, I didn't see any relationship between those two
Uh-huh.
necessarily or anything
Uh-huh.
like that.
Uh-huh.
But my senior year at Northwestern, my mother approached me because she would do original ballets, and she wanted to do a new ballet based on American Indian stories from the Northern Plains and Rockies. And
Hmm.
mom was teaching at the University of Wyoming. And she's like, "Well, you're my Indian classical pianist kid. You're going to write my score." And I was like, "You're crazy." I was like, "What?"
Yeah, what?
And I said, "No, this is ridiculous." And now, here, two things.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, things were different than they are now, than they are with millennials. Millennials, one thing I really like about millennials is their sense of entrepreneurship,
Hmm.
and they kind of have, they don't realize this, but they kind of had this old school thing from back the earlier part of that last century
Hmm.
where you did everything. And also, I mean, like Beethoven did everything, and he didn't go to college for it. He just did it, just like,
Right.
SpaceX engineers learned pretty much everything they needed to on YouTube by now. So, I mean, it's
Right.
all back to an
Right.
entrepreneurial,
Right.
self-propelled. I
Right.
love this. I love this
Hmm.
environment. But in the
Hmm.
80s, you were going to be either a university professor or a successful concert pianist, or, it's
In
a
other words,
teacher.
they're
It was very
prescriptive. Yeah.
compartmentalized.
Right.
It wasn't, I conduct, play violin, piano, arrange, do movie music and concert music. I mean, it wasn't all that gamut like it
Hmm.
is now. I
Hmm.
love this environment. And I'm learning all the time new software, and
Absolutely.
I just did 5 documentaries this year. Never in my life would I imagine that I would do something new like that. So I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
But honestly, in the dance history that I knew, the pioneers of American dance back in the early 1900s, this is exactly what they were doing. So my
Yeah.
mom's going, dancers choreograph and
To do that
perform.
all the
What's your
time. Like,
problem?
what's the wrong? Why?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
so I went back to practicing Brahms, and it just started to come. I just started to feel it, and she told me the stories she was picking, and it was just, it just was unraveling.
Hmm.
And now I'm a very serious person, and I take things very seriously, and I started to get very upset because it was changing me, and I
Ah.
wasn't ready. I wasn't
Ah.
prepared for this.
Ah.
There was something stirring that I wanted. And sometimes it can be very scary
Sure.
to
Sh-
begin.
Sure. Because
It's something you want.
you're. Yeah. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a normal human thing. I think it's part of
Yeah. Yeah.
humanity. So,
Right.
I mean, there's entire movies and stories written about stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those inner discoveries
Yep.
and what that stirs up in us. So anyway, but I also took it very seriously because I wanted to know what did that mean for me, and I'm like, how am I going to compose? Well, it's going to interfere with practice, and what does that mean? Is
Right.
what does this
Right.
all mean?
Right.
So I ended up doing the ballet score, and we premiered it and toured it, and we had a narrator. Had a narrator, and it was one of the actors from Dances with Wolves, Rodney Grant.
Okay.
He's an Omaha Indian guy, and
Hmm.
we became fast friends. But this is what happened, and of course we were visiting some of the reservations and being in contact with Indian country, and
Hmm.
I was nervous. I didn't know how anybody was going to react, but I'll tell you, man, both the classical and native community were both just like, you've got to do this. This is, and Rodney was like, Jerod, and he was like pounding me. I was so mad at him for like, I was like, get off my case, man. Because I was just a kid still. And I was like,
Right.
who's this guy? Tell me what to do.
Right.
And stuff like that. So, but what happened was I had just started studying at the Cleveland Institute of Music as piano performance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got back to school and I went and I saw a man named Don Erb.
Yeah.
And Don Erb is an American
yeah.
composer
Mm-hmm.
who was very significant,
Yeah.
and I had no idea.
This was like one of those like who's this guy? Like yeah,
I am
right.
Jerod Forrest Gump Tate. I have no idea where I'm standing, and I'm like standing in the middle of something. You know, it's like that. That's why I love that movie, is because he's like standing next to, you know, John F. Kennedy or Richard,
Right,
whatever
right.
it was. It's just, and he was like, okay, I'm just here. So here I was, and I just went to see Don Erb, and I said, yeah, I'd like to add composition to my program. And he's like, well, and I gave my ballet score, and I plopped my ballet score down because I was young and very cocky, and I was like, boom, there's my ballet. And he's like, and he flips through it very nonchalantly, and I'm all like, "What you be?" I'm like, I'm kind of all
Yeah, right.
and you know, and so he's like, well, I don't normally recommend a double major because of the amount of time it takes. And I said, well, I tell you what, we can do this one of two ways. I said, you can either take me as a student and we do this right, or I compose anyway.
Talk about and you're telling Don Erb this.
I know. I had no idea who I was talking to. I had heard great things about him from the others. They were like, Don Erm's great. I'm like, yeah, I want to study with him. Woo! I was just all
Right.
psyched about it. And so,
Right.
but the thing is, I had announced to my dad and my grandmother, I said, I'm going to focus as a Chickasaw composer. So I just really locked in with dad and grandmother about that. Very specifically, and it was very much like my announcement. I'm going to be a classical pianist, and then I was like, I'm going to be a Chickasaw classical composer, and they were like, okay, here we go. And so it was just like boom. I had to process it, and when I hit it, I was very, very committed to it. And of course, now I will say this: this is one thing that was really, really beautiful. Of course, who was I playing? I was playing Debussy, who is French nationalist,
Right.
ethnic. I mean, just entirely ethnically, nationalistically French.
Just French, yeah. Through and through.
Completely altering the course of classical music.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was bringing in his total ethnic identity into it. And gee, I think there was a guy named Tchaikovsky that did the exact same thing. You know, it's like there was a whole mass of Russians that were
Right.
completely consciously and being told by the government, you will change classical music.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
by the way, we're going to steal ballet from France too, because we're about to change everything. And then, of course, the United States stole ballet from the Russians.
Right.
But
It's
this
like,
whole, this
right.
backgammon, with all this kind of stuff is how it's been going ever since.
Right.
Fine art has been born, and it's been in all the genres: filmmaking, authorship, choreography, every genre of fine art. And I mean, like, you got Toru Takemitsu. You couldn't be more Japanese in the symphonic medium.
Absolutely.
And it's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful creations of humankind is classical fine art, because it wants your identity.
Yeah, absolutely.
With a very specific discipline. So if you think of it like jujitsu, there's a very specific discipline, but it does want the individual. It wants that person.
Right.
And every person that joins that discipline makes it grow, and it's fluid, because humans are in it. And so fine art does that, and it wants us to be. So I'm just like, I trained under the best composers ever in the piano music that I was playing. You couldn't be more German than Beethoven.
Right.
You couldn't be more ethnically driven,
Right.
And it's like, and you got heroes like Haydn, who created this symphony, and it's why we have movie music. It's why we have Marvel scores, is because of Haydn. Right. So this beautiful, huge ocean of fine art is just available to everybody. And so, and I will say, and then and then I started to listen to the Bartok string quartets. And it was one of my big menu items in my life. And then also, I grew up with all the ballet scores. So my mother had choreographed Firebird, Rite of Spring, and Petrushka. She did the full production of Soldier's Tale.
Oh, wow.
So I saw choreographed, acted, and performed live, all that kind of stuff in Wyoming. I mean, it was really unusual stuff.
Wow.
So I mean, so as I was orchestrating, I mean, the full orchestra was already in my head.
It was already right because you had it. You had it. You had the sound was already
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, it was all there, and so and of course, I mean, it's like I said, I grew up with my dad playing this incredible repertoire and singing, and so I just had this open feeling of
Mm-hmm.
expressing music. Just
Mm-hmm.
it was just very natural and
Mm-hmm.
again very theater driven. Don Erb is an extremely theatric, dramatic composer. I
Yeah.
love it's
Yeah.
romantic to the core.
Yeah.
It's amazing,
Yeah.
and it's so romantic, modern American. It's just awesome. So
Yeah.
his studying with him just opened the floodgates. I just felt like I could do anything.
Anything. Right.
Yeah, it was
Right.
great. Mhm.
Right. Right.
Yep.
So there's a lot of people. I mean, I know a lot of. I didn't get a chance to study with Don. I met him a few times, in various circles, and I know his students are passionate about him.
He's a great
You
guy.
know, like yeah, like
Yeah.
it's they've said this pretty much the same thing, like that.
Yeah.
You know, so uh, so that kind of started everything for you. That got everything kind of rolling in this in you leave Cleveland Institute, right? You graduate, and
Well, fortunately, I started the gig. It took me 9 years to get my master's degree, and actually, Herb had even passed away during that time, and so I graduated virtually, literally. I was like long distance
it was
because it was like I was living in Longmont, Colorado at the time when they read my name, in 2000. So it's like, but I was gigging and I was composing professionally. I was playing the piano. I played for Colorado Ballet for a number of years.
hmm
I toured Broadway. I was the principal keyboardist for the national tour of Miss Saigon and Les Miserables, and I was
okay,
composing on those tours.
yeah,
I was gigging a lot, and I came back from those to do my master's recital on both piano and composition. On two different occasions.
hmm
So it really trickled out. And at one point, I got a call from my registrar, Dave Gilson, at CIM, and he was like, Jerod, you haven't graduated, and I got the single file left in
this is
my.
like the one thing we need to like. I want to clear
I'm.
this off my desk,
He's like,
right?
I need to get rid of you. And
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know what to do. So I took 4 months off. I moved back to Cleveland and stayed in the dorms over the summer and studied and took my comprehensive exams.
Oh man. Okay. All right.
And
Wow.
it was painful.
I'm sure because after it's kind of like, oh, I got to do this again. Like, I thought I was done with this.
Oh, and I mean, I'm a smart guy and I'm very disciplined and everything like that. But I'm just not really good at school.
Mm-hmm.
Just not. I'm not the best.
Mm-hmm.
I would really hate to tell you my grades.
Uh, we don't. This is a non-disclosure zone, so we will not be publishing these on the website. Um, but
It doesn't matter.
yeah,
I actually I think it's really important for kids to understand that, I mean, look, we've all got our superpowers and we've all got
hmm
places that take a lot of work, and it's really there's no one formula for any
well,
individual
that's
person.
that's true. That's
I mean, seriously, for some things are very easy for me or very difficult for other people, and I'll tell you, music and history and theory just killed me. It just killed me. But
yeah.
but again, it's like I was so fortunate because I played piano repertoire that taught me just, I mean, just it
Well,
was just
because it's
in it.
all there. It's all
Yeah.
there, right? It's like, in other words, I think that there's, I mean, not, I don't want to go down sort of a pedagogical zone too far on this,
That's okay.
but in when you think about studying, like you said, there's no one modality in
No.
terms of learning stuff. And in fact, the best way to learn something is go to the source, go to the music. That's where it is. It's there,
Bingo. Yep. Mhm.
right?
Yep.
My father uh, would often say, if you want to learn how to do something, go to the music, copy the score, go copy a Shostakovich symphony, and you'll figure out what's going on right
Mhm.
there. You'll figure out the orchestration. You want to know how the orchestration goes? Copy it out by
Mhm.
hand.
Mhm. And of course, we all have the benefit of listening, and so I mean, if you are a trained musician, you can see the score. You
Hmm.
can imagine it's like you're hearing clarinet going. You pretty much know what that noodling is like on a staff.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, even if you're just listening,
Yeah.
and you're listening like you're listening inside the grooves, all that stuff. You're like as if you're standing inside of the orchestra itself.
And that process, well, of course, as a player for you, because you're, you have the additional tactile uh, uh, dimension. So
Mhm.
here you are, not only are you seeing the score and you're hearing things, right? I mean, even if it's, say you're playing, say, from a full score, like, or whatever, right? In
Mhm.
terms of reading, but you also have that tactile
Mhm.
component that also is like, how, for example, voice leading and all this kind of stuff, right? Like that's all there, right? And it's in the music. It's
Mhm.
in the making of the music. So in a sense, like to your point, you learned all that. You learned it through application,
Mhm.
which perhaps is the best way to learn it. Because and I don't want to say that there's like I don't want to get too much like there's a better way or whatever, but to me, when you play it, there's some internalization. There's
Mhm.
some that happens as opposed to somebody telling you that this chord does this and this chord does that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I mean, if you think about it, it's like when I was, raised in rehearsals, I became a very experiential person.
Mm,
And I'm not, I mean, this is not an, this is not, this doesn't mean unintellectual.
right, right.
Um,
Absolutely, that's a difference.
yeah, yeah, but I could feel, I could experience it right in front of my eyes. And so
Mm,
I think that was a really, really critical role. And I wish that for people so they can actually be there,
yeah.
and so, a lot of times, kids are like, what should I do to help my career? It's like teach, number one,
Yeah.
play in any possible ensemble and take every possible gig you can ever take,
Mm,
no matter what it is.
mm-hmm.
And it's not because you're not necessarily going to follow that, but it's just you're becoming a total
Total musician. Yeah.
experiential musician.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, look, when I took these Broadway gigs,
I was just gonna say that, right?
Miss Saigon, I mean, you want to talk about a snob listen here playing Miss Saigon? I hated it. I couldn't stand it. Now I miss it because the piano book was really, really great.
Uh-huh.
But now I miss it because I was but I mean, so I went into it just kicking and screaming,
Mm-hmm.
but I did it. And what I learned and I mean, and the things I learned all kinds of things I don't want to do or whatever. It just,
Right, right.
but
Because there's
that full experience was really critical to
absolutely,
my development. And I mean,
absolutely.
as I was a ballet pianist for a long time, and I did not see that as a career. But man, playing for dance, there was a piece of choreography that the artistic director of Colorado Ballet, Martin Friedman, did this at the time.
Mm-hmm.
That was all to the list. Uh, Joe, I don't believe this. Uh, what do they call
You,
them? There's a set of six
you're talking about,
list.
oh,
I don't believe this.
maybe somebody at home can help us.
I don't believe this. Anyway, there's a set of six list pieces that he had played, and there, a couple of them are very, very famous. But and then there was one of the
Yeah.
etudes. So he choreographed these, and so, and he asked me to play the piano part. So I played it memorized, watching the dancers list.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's hard. That's
Oh,
hard.
of course.
But also, and I remember, I mean, because I mean, I had performance nerves that I really that struggled with.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got up there and I was playing with dance, my nerves just went. Something happened and it made it all.
Mm,
It just I don't know. I felt like in my element and in control. I don't know,
interesting.
yeah, it was really really cool. So
Yeah.
I mean, and I didn't know that was going to happen, but it's a memory I have that I draw on whenever I'm in front of an orchestra. I mean, the confidence that gave me was
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
remarkable.
Yeah.
So
And
anyway,
yeah, experiential learning, man, it's really where it's at. I mean, like you said, every element and every possible thing that someone who wants to do this,
mhm,
right? And you made a good point just a few minutes ago. You said you can learn all the things you want to learn and discover what you want to do, but you'll also discover the things you don't want to do.
yeah,
And so and my I usually cite my dad because my dad had these sort of like nuggets of wisdom, and one of them is he said know everything so you know what to keep and what to let go.
Agreed. Agreed.
you
Yeah.
know. And that's, so like, I can put on my little snobby hat and say, well, I don't like that. But, unless you know it, you don't actually really know that you don't like it.
You always got to taste your food. The deal is
Yeah.
with our son is like, well, you have to try it.
You gotta
That's a lot
try
of
it.
parents. You
I
got to
mean,
try it. And we can tell if he's like, if he tastes it, you can tell if he likes it and he's just having like a little power struggle. Or if he tastes it and he's like not down. And you're like, okay, you're being very authentic.
we're cool. We're cool. Now we know that that's something that's not on the menu in the future, right? Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all about parenting, man. It's like
Well, parenting teaches you a lot too.
everything.
Everything, right? It's life. It's life 2.0.
It teaches you that you know nothing.
Yeah, right, right. I saw a meme, by the way. Speaking of being a college professor, there was a meme about like, Plato teaches you that you know nothing, and then the educational administrator said, "I'm sorry, that's not a measurable learning outcome." Don't get me started about assessment.
Right.
So actually, I want to play some music, but before I play some music, and we have a slate of pieces for the folks to play, and we can kind of go wherever we feel. But your experiential learning and what in your life trajectory, one of the things that I'm always really impressed by in your process is the fact that you write things out by hand.
Oh.
That's now. So for those of you at home who are watching either live or going to watch the recording and don't know this, Jerod inks his score. He pencils it and inks it in even before we get to the computer engraving part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to give you a chance to talk about how you arrived at that process and what you like, why you haven't transitioned to just doing computer stuff, which might be perhaps potentially more expedient in some ways, at least initially, like, just sort of circumvent that step. And I think I know the answer, but I want you to tell us, tell us your point of view on that.
I have very strong feelings about it. Okay, so and I can say, I was there when Finale was pro composer in 1989.
Oh God, and you're just giving me. I'm starting to have these flashbacks right now. I'm getting. I'm.
Well, what's really funny is that the ballet I did with Mom, actually I pulled up Finale and learned it for that.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, that was on a Mac LC that had 8 megabytes of RAM, and 80
hard drive. 8 megabytes of hard drive space. No.
It was 80 megabytes of hard drive space.
Okay, the 80 megabyte drive.
Yes, and
wow,
a 16 hertz processor. This thing was slower than rotary telephones, and so I had to create, and these scores were not populated, very much. And I had to do about 10 minutes at a time and then stitch all the scores together. And when it would do that, it would take 6 hours.
Right.
But I learned, because I knew it was going to actually take me less time to go and do that. But I wrote the score out by hand first. Mm-hmm. Well, look, I came out of a tradition still of handwriting and everything, but I'm a little bothered by the fact that that's looked at as like, you still write by hand. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
I do. I am very aware that authors still write with a pen. It's almost like, so you actually walk? Oh, I thought you could just drive. It's like,
right. Why even have legs?
Yeah, I'd say, yeah. So I don't want to sound too uppity about it.
No.
But it's almost as if people are asking, like, so you have to practice.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
You do have to practice.
Right.
To play the piano, there's no magic solution other than you have to spend a decade practicing before you can actually consider yourself an instrumentalist.
Right.
Martha Graham herself, in her film that she made called A Dancer's World, said, you know, it takes 10 years of study.
Yeah. Right.
She
Yeah.
was,
No.
and people
Yeah.
said like
Yeah.
the 10,000 hour or whatever it is
The
thingy,
right. The 10,000 hour
you know,
rule.
that kind
Right.
of thing. And so, but the thing is like for me personally, uh, orchestrating. I mean, this is an acoustic world, and people play instruments, and
Mm-hmm.
I need to feel this, and
Yes,
not
the
only that, but
tactile.
exactly, but not only that, it's like, you know, when you look at, you know, when you look at stuff like that, I can
Yeah.
I can get into it and I can pick it up and I can get
Mm-hmm.
into it like this.
Yeah.
When it's on a screen, I can't see the bottom
Yep.
anymore.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
When I'm
Exactly.
composing, I've
Yeah.
got some Instagram photos of this, but when I
Yeah.
compose, I mean, I print out my own manuscript paper, 13 by 19,
Yep.
for full orchestra scores. And when I'm doing this, I lay it out in my living room and I stand on a stool and I look down and go, okay, so
Mm-hmm.
then I'll put notes on. But it's almost like
Yeah.
architecture, or it's almost like, you know, a Basquiat, or like a Pollock, like a Jackson Pollock, where he
Yep.
would
Yep.
stand above and all that kind of
Do
stuff.
the kind of yeah.
So the thing is, I personally need to feel the landscape of a work that I'm composing. It's just really critical to my experience, and I have a drafting team. I just have to be able to spread it out and look at the whole real estate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And on a screen, I can't see all that, and I can't go up and
And
do
just do
this.
it. Yeah.
And also, I don't
Right.
want to do it like this. It's like I want to be here, you know,
Right.
like this. So it's
Right.
no different on a piano. I want to sit down on the keyboard and feel this keyboard. It's just the way it is. I mean,
Yeah.
and so I don't ever want to be in a place where I just think music is going to happen. So I want to be a part of this organic process.
Right.
Hey, I'll
Right.
tell you, it's very similar to cooking. I mean, any kind of a chef, if they, you know, when you see these robotic chefs that are coming out and all
Oh
this kind of
God.
stuff that are really,
Yeah.
well, you know, traditional chefs who are like real artisans and, you know, like real artists in
Yeah.
cooking,
Absolutely. Yeah.
they
Right.
see it as McDonald's. It's like,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
they're like,
It's cookie cutter.
that's not me cooking you a beautiful this and that, you know. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so it, to me, it's a very old school. It is old school, but I mean, I just don't see it as any different than
Right.
the
Right.
traditional masonry. I mean, it's like, you
Right.
can't replace that. I
Right.
mean, it's so I just personally need that. And also, I will tell you an experience I had when I wrote this ballet for Mom.
Mm-hmm.
I was really excited because I was like, and again, I don't know why I was thinking this, because all ballet scores have piano reductions. So I don't know why I was bothering about it, but the DX7 was the big thing, and it
Oh
was
yeah.
around. And I went into a studio and I said, "Oh, Mom, I can just give you the whole thing, you know, laid out." And I spent 8 hours in the studio and did all this kind of stuff, and I played it for her, and she was just like, "Sure. Can you play it on the piano for me?" And I said, "Well, I can't play all this." She's like, "Yeah, I'm not getting this really."
Not this.
And I mean, it was a really cold reaction. And she said, "Okay, could you play the piano with it?" "Yeah, I'll play the piano part." So
Okay.
she's like, "Oh," and she said, "She's like, I'm feeling
Like
you
now it's
breathe."
something happening.
That kind of,
Yeah.
and so she's like, "Could you do me a favor, just play the piano again?" This a piano part minus everything else. And I did, and
Yeah.
she's like, "I get it now." And I
Yeah.
was like, she's right. And then I went back to start writing, and I couldn't, because I had the synth in my head and it destroyed my
Yeah.
ear. So I'll tell you,
Yeah.
when I teach
Yeah.
orchestration,
Yeah.
I'm like, don't do playback. You're good enough musicians. You don't need these
Right.
horrible Sibelius and finale sounds that are still horrible.
Right.
They're
They're still
still,
bad.
to this day,
Yeah.
horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, I'm just not going to accept like, oh, it's kind of, no, it's not. It's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that works is harp and crotales, some piano samples.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all we got. And so,
Right.
so that's a real, I know it's a little bit on the pure side, but it's
I
still,
know.
it's not,
Right.
genuinely
Right.
not the
Right.
real deal.
Right.
And
Right.
so and you know, and I will be like, just don't, just write and know, and trust your ears. You all play an orchestra. You know what your friends sound like.
Mm-hmm.
You know it.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, truly believe that is evident in people's writing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
They trust their organic, tactile, acoustic selves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, look, you know, I'm speaking to you with my acoustic this
Yeah,
here. And
right.
you're seeing, I mean, I
Rather
you're in
than
a
your-
visual domain, but still, I
Right.
mean,
You didn't put your Stephen Hawking voice on. Right.
I don't want to say that. That sounds kind of cruel, but you know, it's like he didn't have a choice. But still, his humor did come across.
Yeah, absolutely.
The way he
Absolutely.
did it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that it's just and I just, and so I use a notation software only as a tool. every once in a while, in a pinch, I will work at something simple out and get it out the door if I'm in a pinch,
Yeah,
and that's fine. But I don't listen to it. I don't
sure.
listen to playbacks.
It's literally just a publishing tool.
Literally for me. Yep.
Yeah,
Mhm.
right. Now, so I knew the answer before you even answered it, and you and I didn't even, well, but I wanted to get you to say it for people, for especially for the composers who might be watching, and uh, and then we'll play some music. But you know, I sort of have like one foot on the soapbox on this one and one foot off of it,
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
and because you know, when I started writing, I also started writing in the days of, you know, Finale, you know, 1.0 and that sort of stuff. Like, you know, I'm just in that zone. But it was so horrible to use. It was just, so I wrote, you know, you know, the first 5, 6 years of writing music, I wrote everything by hand.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. You know, I actually wrote it on vellum, you know, old vellum,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Back in those
I
days.
never did that. Hey, real quick, I will say, as soon as Finale became a tool, I would not write parts out by hand because I knew I was doing the service to myself and to the players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, actually, my manuscript's very good, but
It,
I
it,
knew.
it is good. It's beautiful. By the way, folks at home, go to Instagram. You'll see some really great manuscripts.
But also knew ergonomically it was going to be a real savior for me,
Yeah,
and also
right. Which,
so the benefits of this technology to me are
of
very very
course,
clear, you know,
uh, uh,
as the technical publishing tool. But that's,
yeah,
but
but
writing,
beyond, but beyond,
yeah, I have to have the score, and I mean, when I love it, that's when I'm happy. I'm like, here's my score, and here's my
hmm
software. I'm saying now I'm changing, so I'm gotta be careful. But anyway, I love that, and I love having my score. It's like I feel it, you know, just
yeah, yeah.
irreplaceable. It's
Yeah,
irreplaceable.
it's no,
Mhm.
it totally is. And you know, we can talk. I just think that it's far too many composers rely on the technology, not as a tool, but sort of almost like it um to say this gently, you can tell the difference between sort of what I call finger music, which is out here somewhere,
Mhm. Mhm.
and music that's actually sung from inside of here. And I
Yep,
think
yep,
some of that is the technology getting kind of in the way because the technology stops you from singing in
yes.
some ways. And also part of that is the real estate, your screen real estate too. It's just the way that you input the music, the way that you do these things, but also, you know, you can't see the whole score. You can't see the whole timeline. And if you do zoom out that much,
Mhm.
it's it's a mess. You can't read any notes. So
I totally agree. You know, they talk about this in the podcast scoring notes, and they bring up this issue about how the people that develop notation software, how they've had an impact on composition major programs because composition majors will see that that's the limitations of your notation.
mhm.
It's actually had a real serious impact on that, not intentionally,
No, no,
very real result, you know. And
right.
so as opposed to, like, I grew up with George Crumb scores.
Yeah, yeah.
And so to me, anything is possible because you can do it by hand. But a lot of people who actually are schooled in, Muse score even, or Sibelius or Finale or whatever that they
Right,
use in
right.
schools, and now Dorico, there are limitations to that. And
Yeah,
so yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it does funnel things just because of that necessity, and now those programs are growing much more, obviously much more
Well,
than
of
they did.
course, of course. I mean, you know, it's
But
so
still, they've still got a long ways to go, you know.
you grew up with George Crumb, and I grew up being able to walk into a closet and look at this, you know,
I know it.
like beautiful manuscript of my old man's, you know, and
Yeah.
smelling the ink. I love the smell of like the smell of paper too. But that's another
Yeah.
thing that's beautiful.
Well, there's a reason why that remarkable notebook has just come out, because it's like this the way people are wanting this tactile experience. But it makes sense. It's like if you raise a kid, you'll hold your baby. It's like
Right.
diaper changing and all. It's like you can't, you don't want to do it with rubber gloves on all the time or something.
Right. No matter. Right. You know, kids.
And unless you're OCD, and then okay.
And then the rubber gloves come out. Hey man, let's play some music. So
Let's get down. Hey, let's play some Earth, Wind, and Fire. Let's just start out with.
we could do that. I can cue some of that up, no problem. But
do some Steely Dan. I think that would be very nice.
it's hey, I have whatever you want, man. It's one search box away. whatever you.
Yep.
But I do have what do you think would be a good sort of, let's say, assuming someone doesn't know your music, a way sort of an entry point.
I want you to pull out the Minko video, actually, and I'm going to sing. I'm going to demonstrate. We're going to go ahead and just do the whole ethnic demonstration here,
Okay, great. Yeah.
So, this is a piece for theater that was commissioned by the American Composers Forum, and this is part of a larger work called Loak Shopola, which is the Chickasaw phrase for fire and light.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an 8-scene piece. This is a part where they're talking about the clans. Oh, yeah, like this. Okay, this is I'm Raccoon Clan, Shawi.
Oh, okay.
We have clans.
Yep.
And so this is a segment about the clans, and this is the Minko, who is the chief, calling the clan leaders together for a council meeting. And so this is the Minko. And so this is my example of taking my own folk music and being very dramatic and theatric and romantic about this. And so there's a very old song of ours called a Garfish dance song that I love. I love the melody because it's just pentatonic like that. And so anyway, let me sing you a little bit of this song.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then, and then it shows you what I'm singing, and I do parallel fourths in the voice, so I'm harmonizing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the full orchestra thing, and there's some poetry in there. And there's and also you can see the costumes that Margaret Wheeler did. They're all traditional Chickasaw style costumes. And so this video is a really good representation of where my mind is, where my soul is when I'm writing music. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let me know if that's too loud.
It's
How's
good.
that?
It's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yo lene, yo lene, yo lene, yo lene, you oh, you oh, you oh. Way I only, 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 you oh. So that's basically the song, and actually I'm singing it as a solo act. It usually has a call and response. So
Okay.
way I only is the caller, and the group sings way I only. So there's this whole
back and forth.
Yeah. We can talk about. That was actually in the stomp dance music you were playing in the intro.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah.
But that tune, that opening tune to me is just like this beautiful calling melody, and that's what I fully orchestrated. So we got a 2-minute segment here that shows you the theater, that's me singing that, and then there's the full orchestra that comes in and blasts it.
Does this thing. The title of the video title is exactly just one of me. What's that?
Minko. M-I-N-K-O.
I actually don't have that video.
I'm sorry, what videos do you see there?
I see Kaluza Corn Dance, Ghost of the White Deer, E Holba, Shell Shaker, Spider Brings Fire, and Spider Brings Fire Epilogue.
You don't have that.
I don't have that.
Okay. Can you pull up a YouTube video?
Sure, I can do that. Absolutely.
Just take a second, do a little search. Okay.
No worries.
Look at this. He's so amazing at this. Here, I guess I did a whole intro and I didn't send you that video. What? So sorry about that.
No, man, it's cool. We're live. This is not this is a live show.
Waiting for the search.
Okay, so I'm on the search box.
Go to my channel. Just type in Jerod Tate, look for the channel.
Got it.
I just hit 100 subscribers. I'm so popular, so I can change it to YouTube/Jerod Tate now. I guess is what I'm supposed to be able to do. But
Okay,
there should
cool.
it should be called Clans Demo or something to that effect in the
Uh,
list.
Clans by Jerod Tate. That's probably it, right? No. Let's see, videos. Um, it doesn't say demo. I see clans, just
Yeah, yeah,
clans.
just
That's it. Okay, great.
mhm.
All right, so we've got that. So I am going to switch over to that. Okay. And okay, so I'm going to play this for the folks, and we will meet back up after we do this.
Clans Preview is what it's called. It's a 2-minute guide. The Clans is the longer one. I should have just had you type into Google Clans Preview, just those words, and you'll get right to it. Yep.
Okay, now we got it.
At the end of the spoken, the sung, the dreamed into life and the fire, that is when we are new and begin. The clouds rise up. The creative life has spoken through all the nights and fires, all along the sacred forest and river and stone with its own words. The telling could begin, and once it begins, it may continue. One seed, one life, one thing, one word growing after another.
We got it.
Isn't that amazing that we can do that? It's fabulous,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. Well, the
Excellent.
miracles of modern technology never cease. Um,
When it works.
when it works, right, right. When it works, You know what I need is I need a producer. And that's the one thing I don't have. I am my own producer,
Doing great, man.
But anyway, let's I, first of all I'll talk about two things. One is I've heard some of your music before. I did preview some of the music, but I also have heard some other things of yours, and it's very, very evident to me, your command of the orchestra and your command of the colors. Um, and and I'm not saying this, idly. I'm saying this because it's true, right? Mm, there are some composers that write for orchestra, and it feels like it's a bit like a paint by colors type of situation where it's they're filling in, and it's not necessarily heard in the sense where when you want a particular color or a particular doubling that's very intentional. Your orchestration is extremely intentional, and I want to ask a practical question.
Mhm.
um, I think I know the answer to this because I've seen some of your processes unfold vis-a-vis, when you post your process, like say on Instagram or whatnot. But when you're writing full score, do you compose directly to full score? Like in other words,
It varies. I mean,
okay,
I've got my piano sketchbook that I just showed you, and
yeah,
I go back and forth all the time.
mm-hmm,
So, and then sometimes I'll go to Panera and get away and brainstorm, and I
mm-hmm.
get my little sketchbook, that I've got. This is one sketchbook, that what's the moleskin
Oh yeah,
one,
right, right,
and I'll do that, and then I'll come home and do a little more on the piano. I mean, and sometimes it's like, it just really, I just float between larger concepts or specific or whatever it is.
mm-hmm,
Generally, I will work it out first right here because I got to get it down, and and so
yeah,
I have to do a condensed version. I'm a pianist. I think very much in a piano,
uh-huh,
like a treble bass staff and a piano staff.
uh-huh,
You know what? When Prokofiev sent his music for publication, it was all on piano staffs.
yep,
It was rarely a full score, and he had words and arrows, and I mean, it was really quite amazing
mm-hmm.
how much effort he put into a very condensed piano
Condensed score.
staff.
But he was orchestrating as he wrote.
No,
Another
same here.
right,
Yeah, so
right. In
I
other
did the
words,
same thing, but I get onto the score because once it opens up, then I'm like, oh, and I just,
yeah, right. You
I
can
just see it's like it's all there, and it's like so. It's kind of back and forth, and I
mm-hmm,
love it. I love being in this sphere,
mm-hmm,
here, there, and it's just, sometimes it can feel a little chaotic, but
mm-hmm.
you know, I'm very at home there.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there's a certain kind of let's see, Jennifer Kreisberg. Hi, Jennifer. Nice.
Oh, hi, Jan.
Hello
Yay!
from Connecticut. She said.
Yes, she
Um,
lives outside of Hartford.
sorry. So I'm peeking over to see if what comments have started
I
coming
got to
in.
tell you, actually, I may pull up a little Eulalie because she belonged to a group that was extremely influential to me. I mean, game changing for me. And so we'll talk about that later. But I
Okay.
mean, their work is unbelievable. So Jennifer is she's a Tuscarora singer, and she's just an amazing vocalist who has had a tremendous impact on my career. Jen, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank
Oh, that
you.
just made me feel great. That's just really great.
Awesome.
But she's just an amazing, to me, very historic musician in Indian country.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really validating that she tuned in and said hi. That's really great. But her work is unbelievable. So anyway, go ahead.
Cool.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. So, so I guess the long short of it is that what I hear, what my musical instincts tell me is that you have the sound what you want as it comes with the music. In other words,
Yes.
it's not a post process.
Right.
It's an integral process.
Mm-hmm.
Which is how I work, but not all composers work that way. But I think that you can hear that in your scoring, the way that you deploy colors. It's pretty, at least to my ears, that it's pretty obvious that you are thinking of the orchestra, or whatever your ensemble might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever the palette of paints that you have to play with.
I
I
appreciate that.
Now coming, I don't know. I mean, it's fair to say I don't know the oeuvre of the music of your cultural heritage. So I don't know how this music fits into like it has obviously strong meaning, and it has kind of it's something that's meaningful. So I don't. Can you tell those who might be uninitiated, like how mm, uh, how you approach like you said, classical music is this huge sea,
Mm-hmm.
right? How you approach bringing that voice into the classical realm. I mean, we heard a brilliant example of that. Um, is there something you can tell somebody who might be curious about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a couple angles. One is a very simple one, and then one is a little more complex, I guess. But I say simple, and that is honestly, I listen to tunes, and then I'm like, yeah, I want to use that tune,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually will. Do the nerdy thing. I will transcribe our music,
Mm-hmm.
and I immediately do an inversion, and then I do a retrograde
You
retrograde
kind of do
version,
the
and
kind of the nerdy
also our
composer things, right? Yeah.
yeah, and our music is by and large, well, is entirely pentatonic and diatonic.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I'll do is then I will augment and diminish intervals to
Mm-hmm.
create chromaticism for my purposes. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a modern artist and I'm abstracting in very, very modern ways,
Yeah.
like all modern artists
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
And so look, everybody who's steeped in any of their ethnicity is a contemporary person in that
Absolutely.
ethnicity.
You're living today.
Every,
Yeah.
so this is a normal, and in fact, like when you had shell carvings like this,
Mm-hmm.
3,000 years ago, well, somebody came up with a new tool, and that was talked about. It was modern art of the time.
Yeah.
So we're just so I don't in that respect. That's where we get a little more complex, but it's very simple. I'm drawing from folk tunes
Mm-hmm.
and story. I mean, I love our stories. Our stories are so
Yeah.
beautiful and
Yeah.
colorful
Yeah.
and imaginative, and
Yeah.
that's what stories are. I mean,
Right.
and that's why we go to movies. Everybody wants a great story. It's such a
Right.
life
Right.
force, for humans, is the story
Right.
of
Right.
everything, and
Right.
how we abstract them and interpret and change. I mean, that's what we do. We do it on a daily basis, and how we
Mm-hmm.
speak to each other and how
Mm-hmm.
we express ourselves. We're constantly abstracting. That's
Mm-hmm.
what partially makes us human.
Right. Right.
So
It's that
anyway,
constant.
so
Yeah.
so what I do is I look towards my own culture, and also I work with all kinds of other tribal music, and I hear a tune, and immediately it just, for some reason, it just goes wonk, and it's like, and all this, oh, I could do this, and
I
oh,
could do that.
it's
I
like
could.
I
Right.
just
Right. Right. You hear
I
all the
just never thought I
possibility. Yeah.
could.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, I get so thrilled. I could do this for 12 lifetimes in a row and never run out of ideas or
Yeah.
materials or anything like that. And
Yeah.
also, it's one of the reasons why, I mean, I know that as long as humans exist, there will always be new artistic expression.
Mm-hmm.
Always. And I remember it was a hip thing back in the 80s to say, are we ever going to run out of a combination of, if a computer can write music now, it's going to run out.
Uh-huh.
We're going
I
to
know.
there were
Right. The
books
old
about the
trope of
last
this.
piece of music that could ever be written. And
Yeah.
no, that's never going to happen. I
Yeah.
have great faith. I just know that in my soul. So
Yeah.
I just love the fact that I've just got this. I got another 50 years I can do this now. It's just wonderful. So anyway, so the complex part is my passion of it. I have a very
Yeah.
specific drive and passion that's
Mm-hmm.
just me,
Mm-hmm.
and that I can't totally explain, just
Sure.
other than I just hear. And I mean, look, it's like, here's Brent's piece up there. That's on my Instagram. And here he is. He's abstracting a stomp dancer. That's the music you heard at the beginning, and it's called "Bringing Up the Sun." And you see four petroglyphs that are very historic to our ancient petroglyphs. You got a modern stomp dancer with his cowboy hat and everything like that, and he's pulling up the sunrise. I mean, that's one of the most beautiful paintings ever. And it's like, here, I got Dustin Mater here. He's got, this is a thing for Loach Shuffle, and this is the people going across the Mississippi, and there's a fire there. And this is Josh Hinson. This is one of our Garfishes. This is my son up there. He's abstracting, and just all this stuff. It's like we take our own cultural icons
Yeah.
and make them relevant to who we are today. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing. That's literally what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know a person on the planet doesn't do that. Everybody's pulling from their
You
experience.
you pull from right. Exactly. You pull from your
they go,
collective.
oh, and I could do this now with it. Oh,
Right.
and that's when we all just get into that unexplainable territory of like, ooh, I could do this. Ooh, that's
I
fun.
could do
It's so
this.
cool.
I could do
And
that.
you do that with like somebody who's creating a teaching curriculum does the same thing when they're
Right.
like, it'd
Right.
be really neat if we could help the kids do this like that, and it would be this.
Mm-hmm.
That.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing. It's like in your marketing. It's like, if we just hit the audience with this.
Right.
That's human nature, man.
Yeah.
I just feel so blessed to be a part of it in the way that I am.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what the process is.
Yeah. It's just right. Well, you're an artist, you're a composer, and you're passionate about what you do, and this is the material that really like jazzes you, right? It really, it goes,
Exactly.
wow, this is really awesome. I could, and then you do you do the nerdy composer thing of like, I do this, do that, do this, do whatever, right? And but that's that process, the love of the process too, which is another thing, right?
And again, that happens in all walks of life. I'm just like,
Right.
look, there's 8 billion people on this planet. There's 8 billion ways to express yourself, and they're
Hmm.
all unique.
Which is
And
true.
so
Yeah.
everybody has their combination of experience that they can draw on and go, I want to take that I
Mm.
learned and do this with it. And that's, I'll
Hmm.
say, that's human nature. And if you think about, this is something I like to kind of talk about when it comes to Western fine art, because a lot of times there's a pejorative attitude that's been taken about that in some ways. And it's unnecessary, because if first of all, Western fine art has nothing to do with anything political. It just happened, and it just
Right.
happened. But also, it wasn't the only place. We have Chinese opera that was happening. There's all
Sure.
kinds of
All kinds of
centers.
streams.
I mean,
Yeah.
of creation that have been going on for millenniums. But Western fine art, for some reason, just had, there's something to it. I mean, the refined orchestra is such a beautiful way to express, and everybody from every culture has grabbed it and appropriated it for themselves, as they should.
Yes.
But
Yes.
think this is a really, really bad reduction. But so you got a whole bunch of monks with, and they're singing stuff for, decades, and all this repertoire is building, and their life is dedicated to learning the music. Well, after a while, you're just like, I can't remember this. Okay, it goes something like this. Boom. That's it.
Yeah.
You're writing it down, right?
Yeah.
So you start notation,
Right.
right?
Right.
That was different, because
Yeah.
folk music from around the world isn't necessarily notated. Some of it is, not necessarily, but there's a deliberate cataloging happening.
Yeah. Like, we're gonna do this.
It's repertoire. It's become
repertoire,
repertoire.
right.
So then what happens? What happens, Mr. Composer, if I write something down and I'm writing along and I look back and go, oh, now wait a minute. If I just
If I just let me just change that, or I heard my friends sing it differently with it. Oh, that sounded cool. Because
there it
that's
is.
actually where that's where polyphony came in, man. Polyphony came in because they were like, oh, this is cool. This sounds so awesome in this chapel. We can just sing all these cool intervals together and make shit up.
And you know what the operative word is cool.
Yeah.
It stirs something in our hearts. It's like, oh, that's beautiful. Oh, why? Who cares? It's human. And so that process of cataloging and then going back and abstracting your own thoughts. And then when you did that, you guarantee there's somebody, in your community who is like, I don't know about that. And some
Right.
some people are like, ooh, yeah, could you? And then you got,
Right.
opinions and discussion,
Right.
like
Discourse. Yeah.
because what are you doing? You're making modern art. You are modernizing your. It's just.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been going on forever.
It's right.
And
Right.
It's the same thing with parenting. It's like, you don't, same thing. It's like every parent's like got the same spiritual journey again, and it's like, so over and over, and it was like, who was it? Was it Aristotle that wrote this stuff on parenting, that if you read it now, you think it was written 1985. It's
Right.
about teenagers and their attitudes.
Right. I can't believe these kids these days.
The music they listen to. Is
Yeah, I know. My God.
Talking about 3,000 years ago, whatever it was. And so I think it's because what it does is it makes it timeless, and we realize that time doesn't really exist. We are the same creative human beings that the Creator made us to be. And we are living a very similar experience than people did a long time ago. That we are connected at the hip with all of our ancestors from the past and the old ancient heroes. They're right here, right in our pocket, and the ones coming.
Well, that's the thing, right? We're connected to everything. Hence,
yeah. It's and I find so much comfort and joy and beauty in that. I just feel so good to be a part of a stream of humanity. I just love it. I feel so much comfort in that.
Yeah.
And I feel so much company. I feel, I mean,
there's a tremendous company, which is really great. I think I know where you're going. You finish your thought.
No, so that's it. All I'm saying is like that was the beginning of that, and so then it just happened to be in that part of the world that it became that kind of codified way, but now everybody enjoys it.
Right,
Everybody can enjoy it.
right. And you know, like you said before, it's also an open. It's an open stream.
Mhm.
People can
Honestly,
bring what they want.
it's one of the most inclusive processes I believe that exists in humanity.
Hmm.
And I love that humanism, that I love that humanity and the love
Hmm.
for us. It shows us a common spirituality.
Yeah,
It shows us a common bond, a common origin as
yeah,
far as I'm concerned.
yeah, yeah.
And I love that fine art does that, and it's not discriminate against any. It's like it's
It is.
one of the most
Right,
inclusive
right,
things I could ever experience in my
right,
life.
right.
Yeah.
I want to play another piece because that was a what a little teaser there, right? We got the Jerod
Let's play.
teaser.
Do you have Hashihiloha?
I believe I do.
That's got a score in it. That's the last movement of the flute concerto, and I can tell a little story about that after that. Let's listen to it though.
Let's see. You have it on video or is it
No,
just
I've
a
got the
regular?
score and I've got the music.
Okay, let me pull up the score here.
Yeah, you should have a PDF that
I-
corresponds.
Uh,
Tracing
oh,
Mississippi.
Tracy, Mississippi. Yes, I have it. I have it. I have it right here. I have everything we need to make it work. Do you want to set it up at all, or do you just want to let it roll and then talk about it after?
Hashihiloha means sun thunder. It's very
Wow.
elemental.
Yeah.
It's very elemental.
Yeah.
So go.
Okay. All right. So let's check this out, and we'll meet you up when we're done.
All right.
Wow, man. Once again, uh, I didn't hear this piece, or maybe I don't remember hearing this movement. I had to quickly actually. One of the reasons why I asked you about this off is I flipped to get to the third movement. I was like, "Oh no, I'm not there yet." So I got to the third movement. So I finally got caught up.
That's
So one of the things I have to do for those at home is that my anxieties of turning pages as a page turner, like say as a pianist page turner, show up all over again every time I do this because I'm like, am I on the right page? Did I? If you if I start getting into the music and I start losing my place, you
yeah.
know, but we got there. So right now the folks at home can see the score,
Great. Thank
and they can see us also. At the moment, they can see us. I put our cameras back in, but uh, I love that little moment with all the piccolos, man. That I started giggling a little bit on that. It was like, like that was super cool. That
you.
little,
Thanks.
you know.
Well,
And
the backstory on that piece is okay. So my tribe is originally from the Mississippi, northern Mississippi area, Mississippi,
mm,
Tennessee, Alabama,
mm-hmm,
and we're part of a larger cultural group called Muskogean people, and that includes Choctaws, Chickasaws, Cherokees, Creeks, and Seminoles, and Natchez.
yeah,
Um, and so, anyway, the I've been back to the homelands several times, and I made a big homage back with my grandmother one time, and so before we removed from the southeast to Oklahoma, we allotted all the lands and sold them in chunks and everything like that. So we know literal township and range intersections of exactly where our
oh
families live.
wow, wow,
Yeah, the eastern tribes of Oklahoma, we all know all this stuff.
mm-hmm,
And so so we were walking on the land of our, and there's also old houses that still stand
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
from back in the day. And I mean,
mm-hmm,
because by the time we were removed, we were like small European countries.
yeah,
um,
yeah,
we were literally empires down, and the Cherokee Nation was an empire, man. I'm talking, it
yeah,
was
yeah,
huge,
yeah,
and you had a total mix of traditional and modern world living within the tribes that moved, migrated to Oklahoma.
mm-hmm,
So anyway, so it's very possible for us to do that. So anyway, just grandmother and I had made two major trips back there. My family's been back there many times. So um, when we came back from the first trip, we were driving back home. I said, "Yeah, this is going to become an orchestral work," and that's what it was. So that's why it's called Tracing Mississippi. There
mm-hmm.
is a trade route that goes through Mississippi from the Appalachians all the way down to New Orleans, Natchez, and
Oh yeah, is that also is that part of that what the Natchez Trail?
that is
That is
exactly what it
exactly what it is.
is.
I've been down on parts of the trail in Mississippi actually some
Yeah,
years
it's
ago. Yeah,
the way they've preserved it is a beautiful
yeah,
national
yeah.
parkway, and so but that's called the Natchez Trace, and it was a major trade route from the Gulf up into the Southern Appalachians. It was huge,
Mm-hmm.
right through Choctaw, Chickasaw, and Cherokee
Mm-hmm.
country, and so that's why that was my kind of like my word plays. I was calling it Tracing Mississippi, so it's like tracing my.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But man, I mean, you want to talk about? I mean, the trees are huge and
Yeah.
gorgeous, and
Yeah.
it's just everything's bigger than life. It's just incredible, and I just the passion I feel, and that's where my mind goes when I write is in those forests. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
it's just unbeatable to. And when I went back there, my dad told me, he said, Jared, when you walk in this forest, you're gonna know, you're gonna feel it, why it was so hard to leave.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to become very profound to you. And he was right. Everybody that goes back to the homelands feels that. It's incredible. So anyway,
Yeah.
so that's part of that,
Yeah.
my passion about that. And so like
Yeah.
when you heard the Minko piece, I'm thinking of the Minko out in those larger than life forests calling to the client. I have this
Yeah.
fits, it just
Yeah.
fits, and
Yeah.
after growing
Yeah.
up with the Firebird, I'm like, there we go.
There it is, right?
Those are our forests from the Firebird,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
really.
Was there a reason why you chose the flute as your sort of
That was
as
yeah,
a
that was the
vehicle?
commission.
Oh,
So
so there were yeah.
Yeah, so it's really funny because people are like, how do you choose your instrumentation? I'm like, well, somebody calls me and says, "What do you
Somebody
write?"
says, "Write me a piece," right? Yeah,
Right?
right,
So, I mean, that's the total practical things. It's like,
right.
well, okay, so the flutist is Christine Davis, and
Uh,
she is the principal of the Buffalo Philharmonic,
yeah,
and
great playing.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah.
She's unbelievable. And so she and I were colleagues at the Cleveland Institute of Music. And when I started my graduate work, she was an undergraduate, and she
Mm.
did make it through her sophomore year before she landed the job at Buffalo Phil.
Yeah. Well, there,
And
the
so
job calls, right?
yeah, she just went up. And so, but she and I have been friends ever since, and talk on the phone a whole bunch. And she was like, I really miss you, so I'm going to commission a work from you so that we can just, have more contact. And so she did. So we premiered it with the Buffalo Phil,
Hmm.
and then um, as part of my tribe's initiative, this is I give a lot of credit to my tribal governor, Bill Anatubby. The tribe was actively building our fine arts presence in the country, and wanting projects from
Hmm.
tribal members. And
Hmm.
so I proposed to him a CD of this flute concerto and the choral work that goes with it. We can play some of that, called Iholba,
Hmm.
for chorus and orchestra, that's sung entirely in the Chickasaw language. That was premiered out in D.C. That was a National Symphony Commission before this one, before Tracing Mississippi, and I had a whole album, and it was literally an album that would be a Chickasaw classical CD. And so Anatubby and I talked about it. He's like, well, and I gave him three orchestra possibilities. He's like, which is the orchestra you want? I said, I want San Francisco Symphony. He goes, do it. So
Oh,
there, I had to go. So I call San Francisco. I'm like, so my name is Murr, and I'm there. And so I pitched this whole story to their general manager at the time. And I said, I was just wondering if you're for hire, like would like to hire San Francisco Symphony to record a CD. And he's kind of like, okay. He's like, we don't get calls like this. I said, I know. So I'm calling you about this because he's like, he said, I'm fascinated by the story. And I told him about, because I told him about the pieces
yeah,
and
yeah,
their
yeah,
origins and their, where they come. And it's all the cultural aspects and everything.
yeah.
He said, do you have recordings? I said, I got recordings and a score. I'll send them to you. And it took him in front of the board and Michael Tilson Thomas, and got the AOK from all of them to record the San Francisco. And so Christine came out as the guest flutist, the commissioned flutist,
Wow.
and
Yeah,
recorded Tracing Mississippi. And I mean, so
yeah.
that was San Francisco. I mean,
Well, of
dude.
course, right, right, right. That's like that's our.
I was really fortunate. Before the pandemic, I was able to work with Buffalo, Dallas, and San Francisco, just before the pandemic.
Just
I
for
mean, a
things.
week later, after I'd left San Francisco, they shut down. And so I was able to. They played one of my works, and I actually emceed an entire program with them. And I got to sit up on the stage with them, and they're playing my piece. And of course, they're
Yeah,
just and so in
right.
the middle of it, I stopped. I said, "Listen, I got to just take a moment with
Just
the audience.
gutted.
I'm
Yeah,
just sitting here in the middle of the sand." And so I said, "I can't tell you how overwhelmingly grateful I am that I'm just sitting here doing this program with you
right.
guys." I like, how did Forrest Gump, Forrest Gump Tate.
Yeah, yeah. Here I am.
Uh,
Yeah, right.
how did this happen? And so anyway, so it was a really, really great project. I'm very proud of this project. And so it's the first
Yeah,
in history. And Christine made that happen. She commissioned that work.
that's amazing. Well, you can't. I often say that for a lot of composers, the kind of relationships that one builds with performers is you can't put enough value on that. And it's not just performers. I'll always preface this, especially with young composers, is don't make friends with performers unless you actually really are friends with them as human beings. Like
Agreed.
friends first, and then if they like your music, they'll ask you to write music for them because they like you. I mean, it sounded like that's exactly what happened. It was like, hey man, I want to hang out.
Yeah, it really was.
Because it wasn't like it wasn't a political move. It wasn't like this is going to be a career thing. It was just,
you know,
yeah, and I can't tell you the number of times that's happened to me. And
you're explaining what I can call it authentic.
well, yeah,
Authentic relationships, and authentic is a holistic thing. Yes, we have a common goal in music, and that's great, and we really care about each other. That's authentic.
yeah,
It's great.
yeah.
a little part of that back is that actually the ballet that I talked about that I wrote for Mom, I recorded with a select group of people from Cleveland. My mother acquired a grant from Philip Morris for $10,000 to record the score, and I hired my friends at Cleveland, and Christine was the flutist on that.
Wow.
And actually, I'm releasing that album this year. I finally got the guts to do that, and it's been sitting in the can forever, and it's been performed. But so I actually hired her for several recording things. But I hired, and so that was part of the emphasis. We'd already worked together, and so she was like, "Yeah, we want to keep working with you." And she had a sense that I would really give her
like a really cool piece, right?
I would like really get it. She knows my personality, that I would just go.
Here you go. Here you go. A lot of notes.
Yeah. And so and of course my whole family attended. My grandmother attended the premiere.
Wow.
And I just got to bowl my grandmother. It was really fun because she's just like, just overwhelm her.
Wow.
But you know what? That was a really important event because I was doing that for my Indian grandmother, and I was like, I want to keep doing this for other Indians in Indian country. And so I have a very strong passion of when I'm bringing in other tribal languages and their stories.
Right.
In orchestral music, I know the depth of impact it can have to a tribal member to feel their own history and hear their own language presented.
Right. Come to them through this.
Again, it's why we watch Iron Man.
Right. It's why we keep watching. It's why we watch Star Wars or whatever the case may be. Right.
We're in. It's that story, and we relate. And so when you've got tribal members hearing their own story in their own language, I know the possibilities of what it does for their soul. And I just want that for my cousins. I love my people, and I want them to feel that as much as I can contribute. So
yeah. Let's see if we have some more people saying hello. John Harrington says, "Greetings, Maestro." Greetings, Maestro.
Yeah, John. Okay, John is another one of our tribal treasures. John is Chickasaw, and he's an astronaut. And he's been on the shuttle. I forget how long he was on the trip that he did. John, I don't remember how many times you went up, but anyway. But John is part of the shuttle program in NASA, and he's retired now. And I'm honored to call him a very good friend of mine.
That's awesome.
And he and I just recorded another album together with the Apollo Chamber Players in Houston. And so John is narrating native stories for string quartet and narrator, and so that's coming out this coming spring. And so our astronaut John Harrington is narrating, and he just is awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like, I just want to hang out with John. John, will you come do it? But there's a whole story behind that. It's just really, really beautiful how that came together. But it was all based in friendship.
Right.
John and I had a vision of working together that his wife was trying to help piece together in the past, and it just came together in this string quartet. And here's my buddy, just like, here you go. And John was a saxophone player, and earlier, so he can read scores, and so it's on YouTube. It's called Moonstrike is the name of the piece.
Oh, that was because could you mention that, right? And I know, yes, now that makes sense, right? And I've actually seen some of this come to fruition from a distance.
I Instagrammed a whole bunch of that, and actually, you know what? That'll be a good transition for the next piece. We'll do the Calusa Corn Dance because I'd like to feature the Apollo Chamber Players playing this introduction. But if anybody wants to see Moonstrike in its entirety, you can see John narrating with the Apollo Chamber Players, and that's what we've recorded just this summer. Actually, we just recorded that, and you'll hear John narrating that. It's so fun. It's awesome.
That is awesome.
Okay, so let's transition to that. So John, hey man, it's good to see you. Because he was actually asking me about John wanted to buy a piano, and tonight he was texting me about what electronic keyboard could he buy, and I took a picture of mine to get it. So we were just texting during that last thing, and I said, oh, by the way, I'm in the show. So he hopped on. So that's great. Thank you, John. So
cool.
But anyway, so what you're about to hear is, okay, there's a piece that the Apollo Chamber Players commissioned last year. In honor of the 50th anniversary of the moon landing.
Yep.
And they are the Apollo Chamber Players. And Matt Dietrich, the principal violinist of the group, is a longtime space nerd. And he is a fan. And so this was a dream for him to work with John. And just nerd
It's
out.
kind of
It's awesome.
everything is all coming together, right?
Really, it's really
Yeah.
adorable.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they wanted they had asked for a work that dealt with American Indian legends of the moon. I'm like, well, it got lots of them, and it
Yeah.
evolved. They were like, could you base the stories on? I was like, absolutely. It's my jam is to do theatric works. Well, do you know of any Native American narrators that could come in? I said, I'm going to blow your mind. I have a friend who is a Chickasaw astronaut who has done stage performances before, and he does this all the time.
That
He
was
does
just like boom, right?
boom, and so it was just great. I love it. And
Yeah,
so again,
yeah.
it's like that. Honestly, that's authentic. That's just
Yeah,
all that's
absolutely. And you can't script that sort of thing, even if you
yeah,
were trying to, right?
right, exactly.
You know.
So it was really great serendipity. I just love it. And so anyway, the piece has three main stories inside of it, and it's bookended by a Calusa. Calusas were Seminoles,
Okay.
and it's an old Calusa corn dance. And and it has an intro, and it gets into the dance itself. The first violinist is blasting out the melody.
Mm-hmm.
This is me completely. Here we go. Let's get into it. And this is the intro. So if you don't mind playing that video, the
Sure.
Calusa corn. This was at the session, and I was able to go and have them. I just filmed them doing a take of this, just
Cool.
straight. Yeah, it's great.
Cool. All right, great. Well, let's cue this up, and we'll meet back when we finish. Cool. Very
Yeah, they
cool.
just nail it, man.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
just rocking. It's awesome.
Man. Yeah, that's a great group.
Yeah,
Tight.
yeah. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Oh, John says, "Yay, you betcha." That's awesome.
John lives in Montana now, and so that's where he's hailing from, is Montana.
Very cool.
Hey, John, are you on Starlink yet? Did you get that whole thing with? Is that how you
Oh,
get
the internet
internet?
thing? Yeah.
I'm,
Well,
I'm
maybe.
ribbing him. I'm
Oh,
totally ribbing.
okay. Let's see what he
I don't know if
says.
you're aware, but Musk he's got Starlink going on, and it did its beta test last week very successfully. So
Yeah, he's going to shower the planet with Wi-Fi.
he already it's happening.
Well, it's happening, but I mean, he's gonna roll it out is what's gonna really happen. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. See, Nora Lampkin says hello. I don't know if you
Yay!
know Nora.
Awesome.
So, and John says nope. Very succinct. Nope. Period. So.
He's so funny.
So yeah, well, that's I'm glad we got a chance to. I want to play one more piece before we, sort of bring things, wrap things up. But it was nice to hear for people a little bit of chamber music side, where, in chamber music, you. As opposed to, say, playing with all the colors in the choruses, right? You could really get to sort of hear the well, I don't want to say the notes, but there's kind of like a purity there in terms of like the sound, right? Especially string quartet, right? And of course, I know that's a short piece; it's an energetic piece and whatever. But there's something about another sort of, I think, feature of your music is that your choices are very well informed, very well heard choices, harmonic choices, melodic choices. That your use of dissonance is very, it's, I, oh, and the other thing, and again, this is not me. I'm not trying to shower you with compliments, man, but I just want to
I'll take
point
it.
out. I want to point out some things that, as a fellow composer and a musician, and things that I hear in your music, right, and that I think are really interesting. And I cannot, to be honest with you, I cannot say this about a lot of music that's being written today. Is well, really two things. One is, you have a sense of knowing when to bring things in and when to stop things.
Oh,
It's which is probably the hardest thing to learn. You can learn the modes and the harmonies and the blah blah blahs, right? But boy, knowing when to stop and knowing when to start, right?
I agree.
And I mean, it's also a testament to the fact that, hey, you've been doing this for a while, right? You know your thing, right? It takes practice. It takes a lot of experience, a lot of practice, a lot of basically doing it over and over again. And of course, also doing a lot of that tactile sort of listening to music and other music and immersing yourself in it. So I always find there's a in your music, it feels very organic. It doesn't feel forced, contrived, doesn't feel like, okay, now here's the B section that needs to be there, Oh, okay, this is clearly the B section, or what I'm talking about. I'm using very basic ways of describing it, but and I also really like when you expand your sort of, when you go kind of try to put this in a way that's not going to confuse listeners who might might not be nerds like we are, but you're very well aware of how dissonance works in terms of the verticality of it. In other words, it's kind of like the crunchy notes are in the right spots and they're where they need to be. I think, if I was to nerd about this, it's like you have a very good instinct for harmonic color. Very good way of using that, right? You don't stay in the sort of like the diatonic universe all the time, right? When you stretch it out, it's stretched out not just because, hey, I'm going to throw some wrong notes onto chords that are familiar. Like, in other words, there are sometimes I hear composers write like familiar sounding chord progressions, but then throw in wrong notes, and it just sounds like they're wrong notes. It doesn't sound like. Do you see where I'm getting with that?
Yeah, I do.
And I think at one point you and I had an exchange at one point. Also, your sense of melody, you're not afraid to take the melody. And I always harp on this. Take the melody when you got it. Right?
Yep.
Always take the
There's
melody.
Some differing opinions about that, that's for sure. I'm not shy about melodies. This I'd like to bring a point back to this. One of the reasons why a very big hero of mine in composing is Prokofiev. And one of the best way I can articulate that is because if you look through his catalog of output, man, he wrote everything.
Yeah.
And he wrote exactly what he needed to write for whatever it is he was writing, unapologetically.
Right.
And I don't know a better word for that. It's unapologetic. It's kind of a little negative. But the point is that, I mean, he was like, well, I'm doing this, so I'm going to write like this, and I'm doing this. So a really good extreme example is Peter and the Wolf, that's full of tunes and orchestrations, very specifically, obviously, as an educational tool. And so it's iconic. And then you've got his wartime piano sonatas.
Yeah.
That's some of the most unbelievably complex and challenging writing. I mean, oh God, they're hard to play.
Yeah, right.
That's why I played 7. I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do this. Actually, 8 would be like the mammoth. But 7 to me was just, it was really musically very tight, very very tight.
Yes.
And I'm very proud of that work. But I love the fact that Prokofiev, and it shows in his ballets. If you go through Romeo and Juliet, the sections, I mean, the orchestrations and the kinds of things he does at every point in the story, it's just like he's just doing exactly what he needs to do.
Right.
And then you listen to, his film score to Alexander Nevsky. It's simple as heck, and it's exactly where the theme.
It's
for
exactly
Jaws
what needs to
came
be
from.
there. Yeah, right.
Yeah, but also it's where the theme for Jaws came from.
Yeah,
It's
right. There's
where
that. Right,
Phantom of the Opera came from. Two themes from Phantom of the Opera came from that. One, battle on the ice scene, including
That's
Jaws.
true. That's true.
That came from the battle on the ice. It's
Right.
because he was clear as a bell about what he was doing, and just did. And the thing is, he lived at a time where he had heard it all.
Yeah.
And so to him, he was just like, well, I can do it all. The only thing he didn't do was what George Crumb eventually did. And so that was another composer who was like, I'm doing this. And now he was very focused on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm very, very inspired by the fact that Prokofiev just did anything he wanted to, whatever the musical message was going to be. He followed that path and no problem, and did it with great mastery. And so I'm inspired by that. I want to be that good.
Yeah.
I want to be that good of a musician.
Yeah, man. Geez, that's like, when you think of somebody like a Prokofiev, who happens to be one of my favorite composers, and talk about somebody who could turn a melody. My God. I mean,
he was incredible.
I mean, he could really turn a melody.
Yep. And like if you listen to his Fifth Symphony, oh my gosh, that first movement is the same tune over and over and over and over. I mean, it's incredible. I'm like, why don't I ever make my life much easier on myself?
just
repeat
right, right.
With 5,000 orchestration, and yet he still made a sonata form out of that first movement. I mean, I'm like, well, how did you jerk? How did you do it so brilliant?
Right.
This conservation of material, like one tune, and he makes this beautiful sonata form out of it. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Aren't you Prokofiev?
Thanks for making us all look like hacks.
Yeah, well,
yeah, right.
And honestly, a lot like I have absolutely no solo piano works. And it's like, after playing Prokofiev 7, what am I gonna write?
It's kind of like, yeah, right.
Really?
Like you're gonna
write after playing the
here comes
sonata.
Forrest Gump Tate writing a piano sonata, right?
No, fortunately, on my list of commissions, I do have a piano concerto coming up, and I'm glad I'm ready. I'm actually ready to do it. But if you notice, it's with orchestra.
Yeah,
it's like,
right, because you know how to do that.
I want the full meal deal. It's like,
right.
So when I wrote for that, the flute concerto, I mean, it's like, that was barely a flute concerto. That was a concerto for flute and orchestra.
It was a concerto for orchestra with flute.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. And I still dig those piccolos, man. And that contrabassoon. I love contrabassoon, man. Could never get enough of contrabassoon.
Yeah, you can never have enough. And in fact, Don Erb wrote an entire set of contrabassoon duets.
Really? I don't know those pieces, man. I gotta look.
They're called Red Hot Duets for contrabassoon.
Okay.
It's just great. And of course he gets all like, he has a real sense of humor in the works. There's no doubt. He gets them really grinded.
Yeah.
That's where you get all
I tell you, man, contrabassoon brings out the fun in everybody.
Yeah, but contrabassoon, honestly, in orchestra, it's transformed when you have a contrabassoon on the floor.
Oh, you kidding? Suddenly the overtone series goes bing.
Yep.
Right? It just brightens
It's more
the
than
whole
just a
thing up.
doubling. It's like you got to put it right. It's one of the reasons why I actually put the bass clarinet below the bassoon. So in my orchestrations, I constantly have contrabassoon, bass clarinet, bassoon 1 and 2. Because that combination, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The mass that creates is pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
But if you have the bass clarinet above the bassoons, it doesn't work. You got to have bass clarinet and the contra right in there. That relationship.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
there's some real tasty deliciousness in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we just got our nerd medal. That was
we
it.
We did. And like half the people that might be watching are like, what are they talking about? Meanwhile, I'm hearing everything you're talking about in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, you know. Okay, we'll stop nerding out. Let's play another piece before
Okay, let's see
we
what we got.
we bring it home.
What do we got? We got Shell Shaker. Yeah. Okay, to bring it out, I'll tell you what. Let's do a teaser.
Okay.
What time is it? Okay. Um, I am working on an opera trilogy, and I would like to play a little teaser of that. It's called Shell Shaker.
Okay.
This is a little promo, but okay. So what you're hearing, just so you know, is a soprano and baritone singing one of our traditional hymns in the Choctaw language.
Okay.
And so this is an example. This is a very romantic example. This is a completely traditional melody orchestrated, and this is me totally being very, very romantic. So anyway, but this is Shell Shaker. We have turtle rattles that I played for you earlier. This is our percussion.
Okay.
And we have a whole legend of how we were gifted shells in our culture. And it was from a girl who goes to the forest to discover life and comes back. You know, I mean, it's the whole
story.
Go to the forest.
Yeah.
And yourself the Nutcracker. Go to the forest.
Yeah. Right.
It's a beautiful, beautiful story of the origin of our shell shakers. And so this is an opera that I'm looking at workshopping the fall. So
cool. Awesome.
This is a little teaser for it for people.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to check this out. I'm going to cue this up and we'll meet back up after. Wow, man. First of all, beautiful. It's a beautiful theme. It really is.
That's our melodies. That's our tribal melodies.
I mean, that's like I could, you know, okay, so like the composer in me is going on, wow, man, I could really do a lot of cool stuff with that. So, you know, you go for it, man.
Yeah. The world in there is just I could just be in there forever. It's great.
Yeah. And opera. So, you know, it's like one of those things. Like for me, it's like one of those like when I think of opera, I think of like the thing that I really want to do. Like I feel I'm ready to do, but I haven't found. For me, I just haven't found the right story and the right collaborators. Like it just hasn't, like those ingredients haven't come together yet. And I don't feel like I should push it because I feel like too hard, but maybe if I don't push a little bit, maybe I don't have too much time left to wait. So I should probably do a little pushing, but nonetheless, you got to find the right story. You have to wait to get to the moment that seems right. You know, of course you could play the practical game. If somebody calls me on the phone and says, hey man, we want you to write an opera about this, you know, the composer in me might take the commission, you know, if it seems like a worthwhile story, even if I don't. But nonetheless, I'm kind of envious of your position to be able to be in a position to write, and also to work with such a rich kind of story, like a really cool story, right?
Yeah, yeah. I feel very blessed about this, Elliot. It's, and I also feel like it's the right time for me. I feel very, very clear on the vision of this, and again, it's like, we just, every culture has legends that are just
Yeah.
unbelievable. I mean, it's like, look at this. The, look in the American canon of, like, like if you look at Lizzie Borden, the Fall River Legend.
Right. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
was that Morton? Was that Morton Gould that
Well,
wrote
I think
that?
it was Morton Gould who
Yeah,
did the,
that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, what story? I mean, whoa, that was an intent, and that's a great score, man. I mean, that ballet is incredible. I mean, I'm sorry, it's not an opera; it's a ballet. I
It's a
get them
ballet.
confused.
Yeah.
That's a
But
ballet.
but still, it's a story. I mean, it's story told through dance,
It's
right?
the same thing
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
But I have a strong belief in what to do with opera and ballet,
Mm-hmm.
and I love stories that are universal to an audience. And so the Shell Shaker story is, that this. Well, actually, I'll keep that. But the point is, it's a hero story, and this girl is a hero to the tribe, and she literally almost, like, changes her entire people by altering the culture.
Yeah.
And she's an unexpected hero. And I love stories like that. There's another story that we have called Spider Brings Fire that we could play that little movie if you want to. It's just a minute long. But Spider is the unexpected hero that brings fire to the people, and who would have known?
Who would have known that
fire.
was.
So those hero stories I love, because everybody can go, that's me, or I want that. It's just I love that. That's what.
Yeah.
Why is why start and that's where actually this is I'm very grateful to my exposure of Joseph Campbell as a artist, with his whole, he's Catholic, and he dove into world cultures and finding these universal themes, these universal religious themes with people, and found a unity that was really beautiful.
Right.
And and so his book, A Hero with a Thousand Faces, is a real cultural
kind of
magnificent
bringing
work.
it together. Yeah.
Stuff that people have known, but he finally put it in a book form. And then all these Bill Moyer interviews that were just incredible. And
yeah.
So I really relate to that, and I feel that a lot of the stories that we gravitate toward are universal stories. They're cross cultural. I love that.
Yeah. I've been I would like to actually play. This will be a good way to sort of to play this Spider
Brings Fire.
Spider Brings Fire. I don't know. You sent me two clips. One is the epilogue and one is the ending. So I don't which one should we play if we cue one up?
Let's do the ending, because this when Spider becomes the hero.
Okay.
And so the melody that Spider has is another one of our hymns. It's a total orchestrated melody, and then the very end is what our tick dance. So they're both arachnids, and so a tick dance is the closest we could. So, but it's like a full tick dance in full French horns, and it's like, so play the ending. So Spider Brings Fire. The story is that the animals see fire across in a sycamore tree, and they're like, we got to get fire. Who's going to go get it? And they have to cross this river.
Yeah.
And owl goes, and crow and snake, and they all fail miserably. And this is how crow gets burnt and turns black, and how owl becomes red eyes because it burns, and snake turns into a black racer, and they all get torched by this fire.
Right.
And Spider goes and says, I got this. And they're all like, nah, and they're just all poo-pooing Spider. And finally she's like, I can do this. And she goes over and brings back a little tiny ember in a bowl and brings it back. And lo and behold, and then that's actually how we end up this is how we traditionally transport our fires, is you have a thing you carry with embers, not the flames.
Not the flames, right? Of course,
and again, that's worldwide. That happens all over the world.
Yeah.
How you transfer fire, old school, old timey way. And so anyway, that's the story of Spider. So this is the end of where she goes and she shows him.
This is the way. Got the ember. Now we got it.
Yeah, it's
cool.
Awesome.
All right, let's check this out, man. Let's check this out.
Poor us. Even the racer cannot bring us our fire, and we need it so much. Well, okay, Spider. You are little and kind of ugly with your black downy hair and your 8 legs. But you are the last one who might have a chance, so we will let you try it. See how I cross the water? Oh, Spider! Spider! Look, did you know a spider could weave a bowl out of silk and clay and carry it on her back? A spider can bring a coal in that bowl and return to the others. Spider, you have brought us fire. You are our helper, our friend. You have found a way to bring fire, and you are so small. Who would have known? On second thought, you are so lovely. We never really said you were ugly. We will always take care of you, Spider, and all the rest of the beautiful 8-legged creatures.
Well, that's a great way to sort of close the introduction to your music, man. And you know, you've got a horn player in the midst now, right?
Well, I mean, duh.
Right.
I was like, how do you pick out the horn? It's like, well, he Loha sings this. I play this for him in the car. He's like, can you play Spider? And he sings it.
Yeah,
So,
well, there you
so
go.
when he said, I want to play the horn, I'm like, where did you get that? Well, geez, Jerod, your
Yeah.
son is singing your horn parts, Tate.
Right. No, right. It's got the horn parts down, right? Yeah.
I am so smart. I can write orchestra music, but I can't figure something like that out. It's like,
Some basic like 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah, right.
You know, we have our superpowers, and
And
we
man, we got some not superpowers. Yeah, yeah, right. I hear you. Nice or again, your beautiful orchestration. The illustrations were lovely. I think those are, and uh, yeah, and lovely melody, as I'm always fond to say. I love it when the melody is there, and you take the melody.
Well, and of course, that's a very storytelling thing, and
Sure,
so that,
sure,
I mean, look, the flute concerto is a really good example of much more, abstracted stuff, and so
sure.
I feel very comfortable just going back and forth depending on what it is I'm trying to do, and I want to feel comfortable doing that.
Well, yeah, I think they're like, uh, there are two things I could say about that. One is that, when I hear the flute concerto, I don't hear a lack of melody,
Right,
right? In other words, I
right.
mean, like I hear the melodic, mm, the melodic inevitability of all of everything that's happening, right? Yeah, sure, it's got a lot of chromatic noodling and everything, but that doesn't mean that there's a lack of
Mm,
melody, right? Melody doesn't have to be, the big lush thing in F major
mm,
in
mm.
that sense, as you and I both know that. uh, and it's a kind of intentionality that of of uh, of being in. I'm going to repeat the word intentional because it's the only word that's popping to my head. It's the you're being intentional with the way that you're saying stuff,
Mm, yeah.
and then maybe that's probably a better way of saying that you take the melody is that you're in, and that seems like a duh thing, but it's not always obvious to everybody, right? It's not always an obvious thing that occurs, right? um and I wanted to ask you one last thing, and then I know we've I don't want to we could talk all night, but the the sense of drama in your music is is very obvious because a lot of the music sort of centers around sort of dramatic themes and imagery and so forth. Um, how do you think because to me, even in music that's not narrative necessarily, that doesn't necessarily have a direct narrative connection, right? That isn't quote unquote programmatic, whatever you want to
Mm,
call it.
yeah.
Um, Good music tells a story,
Mm, yeah.
right? It tells
I,
a story. Now it could be a story, but that you can bring to it. In other words, it's a non-narrative story, right? It's a drama.
yes, yeah. I call that emotional drama. That's emotional storytelling, and so I believe that very good artists tell us either a very specific story or an emotional story.
Mm,
Either maybe this is a good way of saying it. It's like I think it's uh, I'm attracted to music in which I feel like the composer is taking me by the arm and just saying, "Now listen, I have something really, really important I need to tell you.
yeah, right,
And
right.
this is going to take a little bit of time.
But
So
it's going
could
to be
you
worth
listen?
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I need you to listen here because
yeah,
I've got something I need to tell you, and it's
right,
very, very important.
right.
You ready? Okay. And then you go. So whatever that story is,
Hmm.
and that could be any way to tell it.
Yeah,
But I believe if the intention is there and you can feel this, there's a certain focus and necessity that that person needs to tell you this.
yeah,
I'm attracted to that type of music. That's the
right,
type of, and when
right.
I can feel it, like when something starts, it could be by accident something starts playing and I'll go whoa,
Hold on. What was that? I gotta pay attention to that.
and I'm in and I'm like, we're
Yeah,
going somewhere. Where are we going?
yeah,
No story. It's here. It's pulling my soul. It's telling my soul it's some
absolutely,
kind of emotional story.
absolutely.
Hey, honestly, when I'm snuggling with my son, I feel the same way. He's like, Dad, can we snuggle? I'm like, yeah, and we snuggle, and there's just something
Hmm.
going on, and
Hmm.
it's happening. Life is happening. I'm feeling
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
It's really really special. So that's
yeah,
that's what I'm attracted to, and
yeah,
that's what I try to do.
yeah. That's interesting that you put it that way with your son, which makes actually makes a lot of sense, even from a from a distance, that would make a lot of sense. But when you said that to me, it kind of clicked with something in terms of um, the when you're living life, when you're actually living life, when you're plugged in, those moments, and it could be as simple as, you're taking a walk and you get a breath of like, you get a little warm breeze hits you and you get a scent of some tree or a flower or something like this, or just you look up and you see, it's really very clear out and you see some beautiful sky, or like I know I'm putting them in sort of natural terms. You could also be sitting with friends and you just realize that the moment you're there is a moment that's happening, like that's so palpable and so real, and it might only last for a little while, but you're in that space and you'll always kind of remember that space. And I think that those life moments that we all experience, that's kind of what we try to do in the art. We try to put that lived experience into the art. And in our case, we do it with sound and silence and time. And so I think when we're at our best, we are actually in that space, in the music, and then able to hopefully convey that to the listener, where the listener is pulled into that same space that we're in. But it's interesting. I just kind of, I guess I connected that. The way that you put it in a real life way just made me think, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, great.
If anyone has any questions before we say goodnight to our guest, be happy to convey the questions. It's been nice to, in the meantime, while I wait to see if anybody has anything to say in the closing. Man, it's been really great to spend some time with you and to check out some tunes.
Yeah.
And
sure appreciate
to catch up a little bit about life. I say this to everybody I have on. My production values aren't great, and things happen. But I plan to have everybody on at some point for like a "Where Are They Now" kind of catch up segment. So that's a
lot of work to do. You got a lot of guests, man.
I do. They'll be a little shorter. It'll be kind of like let's zoom into to what Jerod's doing today. Hey man, how are you doing? What have you been up to? So we'll figure that out. At the beginning, it started out like a joke because I really didn't have my shit down when I started this, and I still barely have it down now. But this gives me that moment of like, I get to be like sort of faux Larry King for a couple hours, Des Moines, hello.
Yeah.
But anyway,
well, hey, I'm really grateful, and if anybody does have any questions for me, please feel free to reach out. I don't care if anybody texts me or whatever. My phone number is on my website.
Okay.
My email's there too, but my website is jerodtate.com, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love it if people would contact me if they feel like.
Absolutely. I will do this in the description of the videos. Once they're published, I will put your website link in there and anything else, and so people can reach out. And if you're watching this after the live version of this, feel free to put comments in. We'll respond to comments, ask questions, and check out more of the music. And really excited to hear the opera. Yeah, really excited to hear the whole thing. I can't wait.
I'm excited to dive
I can't wait. Yeah.
Yep. Hey, and everybody, happy holidays, and hope everybody has a beautiful and loving holiday season.
Yes. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. So I think we'll sign off. Take care, man. It was lovely. And I'm going to switch to the ending credit thing there. There I am. Great. To echo what Jerod said, as we enter the holiday season, and we do unfortunately are seeing something of a ramp up of COVID cases across the country. Everybody stay safe with your friends and family. Reach out to people, to neighbors if they need your help. support one another. It's going to be a long winter, but with people and friends and family, these times become a lot less stressful for everybody. And I just hope everybody has a wonderful and safe holiday season. But before we get deeply into the holiday season, I'm going to do on the next episode of Composers at Home. And we have there, Daniel Bernard Romain will join us. He's going to be coming in 2 weeks. So next week, of course, is Turkey Day. So imbibe responsibly. I'll come back to me here. And hope to see you in a couple of weeks. And we'll close out our season in 4 weeks. Right before the Christmas and New Year's holiday with wonderful jazz vibraphonist Joe Locke, who will join us. He's also a terrific composer. I'm going to do the ubiquitous subscribe right there, right there, right there. If I can't figure that out. I still can't figure out my left and my right whenever I'm doing this sort of business here on video stuff. But anyway, subscribe to the channel. And I'm going to leave with some more of the Stomp Dance Blues for you. I'm going to cue that up for you as our closing outro. Please, everybody, practice responsible social distancing, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Who